To make a quick 5-minute video on this. I've talked about this before, but it's just trying to vent things out. Look, I don't know if this was ever going to be a surprise, but I honestly believe that this was some sort of surprise at some point, but I do not rely on it. I believe that this was some sort of conditioning and training, understanding that there was going to be some sort of DJ contract, and Eric, Michael Rossiter, me, and maybe, who knows, maybe one other person were all going to get DJ contracts to play under like 50 Cent or Dr. Dre, because they're the hip hop monologues, or whatever you call them, they're the tycoons of the hip hop world. And that we were going to get all our lives changed and our dreams come true. Or at least that's what we had done for so many years. I really did believe that. To this day, I don't rely on it. I do not rely on any of that at all. Like, even if it came close to the idea, I don't rely on that at all. I don't. Nobody has to give me anything or do anything, and I'm not pretty sure they're probably not allowed to, but I really do believe that, gosh, for so long, like, I thought for 10 years, I would say that in my early 30s, I really did, because I was homeless in Colorado Springs. I was like 33 years old when I got the hunches of believing that there was going to be a surprise. I don't know how they were going to do it, but they were going to put everyone's life together and try to fix a lot of situations. But the situation was to put me, Eric Quintero, and Michael Rossiter all together for a DJ contract. Us three and maybe one other person, because we were the only three that continued to do it. And for a very long time, Chris Martinez did for a while, but not after, he stopped doing that when he was like 21, 22 years old. And I thought this was supposed to be a surprise for a long time, and I didn't have high hopes of it. That's not what I was doing, and I don't rely on it, but I thought that was what the plan was, that they were trying to do this for that reason. And there's all these sort of problems with all the other friends and whatnot, and they decided, to try to fix and alleviate everything, because for other family problems and whatnot, including my own family and Michael's family and Richard Murphy and John Murphy, because John Basile, John Basile, who was there at the hospital with me, he DJed for a long time and also quit. He actually had more records than I ever did, and he owned turntables as well. But I thought it was important for me to talk about. I really believe that, they were putting all these friends together and they're building a DJ contract, and they're going to get everybody DJ contracts. Like, and I'm not talking about you just play at a simple club, like, it was going to be a 50 Cent showing up himself after whatever shenanigans and family, and then offer his help of making their dreams come true, or offering me as well. But it was not going to be until, like, maybe they sent us to school to, like, go to learn how to scratch, and they had so much DJ scratch academies, and that was possibly going to be a way to do that. So then he was going to help us do that. I think, in my opinion, I think Eric probably deserved it probably more than anyone that I know of, because he put the parties together. I think Michael just had a lot of money, and he dedicated. I think Michael and Eric were the two people that deserved it the most out of all the DJ friends, because they put more hours, more money into it, and more time and lifestyle, and especially Eric. Eric is the one that always organized all the bookings for the DJs, a lot of DJs, trying to make but focusing on the crew that I was in with him and some of the other DJs that he put together, and for Yucatan, Liquid Stand, Afterlife, and a couple of other different clubs. But he booked Chris Martinez and Kevin, so many of us that were coming to my house and DJing when I was in my teenage years. But I would say Eric deserved it the most, in my opinion, because he put a lot of work in. He made the flyers, he got the graphics artist, he went to the clubs, he talked to the owners, he figured out how he could throw parties. He did all that work. He did all that. Nobody else, none of us knew any DJ club promoters that would let us throw parties or play at the clubs. None of us did. He was the only one that did, and he knew quite a bit of them. And he was always booking us for DJs and whatnot. So, and he's the only one that ever booked me for gigs to play at places. But I thought this was supposed to be a big surprise. And after I meet my biological father is still alive, I meet Michaela, and I go to rehab. They were going to send me off to a different country to rehabilitate my life, and all the HIV positive and all this other shit. They're going to introduce me to my mom's house, and because they didn't want conflict and me being bitter that she got something and Frankie was raped. And then I meet Frankie, and Frankie's in a wheelchair, and he's had a massive stroke or a brain hemorrhage, and I don't know about it. And when all that is done, I thought that was the plan. And it's not something I look for, because all I wanted was to talk to my family. I wanted to talk to my biological mother. I wanted to contact Frankie in person and Julian, and that never happened. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I feel old. I'm 41 years old, and in my opinion, I think it's going to take, I know it's going to take me twice as long to learn, because it's different than analog vinyl, and it's going to take me twice as long to even try to think that, even if I can, because when you're listening to music and you're thinking about what you're thinking about, who you are and what you're doing and what you wanted to do, isn't the same when you're in your 20s. It isn't, and when you're in your teens. The same thing, the connection that goes between me and Eric, when we used to DJ together all the time at his house, and he'd come over. I rarely ever played with him at Eric's, but maybe just a handful of times. But I played at his house numbers of times when people would leave turntables over there, or at some party, but he was always kind of like the leader of a crew, majority of the time. But at Chris Sick, they call him Chris Sick One, or Chris Jarris, we used to play at his apartment a lot when I was a kid as well. A bunch of times. He used to play, with Aaron when he was married to Aaron. But I thought I'd make a video, and I don't know really what else to think. I thought this was a whole surprise. It was just going to be, all I was expecting is nothing but the worst problems and the worst of things. And then that was going to be the very last thing. And it was going to be a choice, and there was going to be very strict conditions if it ever was. But the thing that made things worse is that nobody analyzed the problems, nor did they see how unfair it was for me. Because I know that I took more of the brunt of the hit of everything, of sacrificing, and nobody listened or cared. Because everyone has their problems, and some people explain their problems a little bit more, better than others. And they have their own output, how all that works. But I can tell you this, almost 95% of they're not going to work for my mother. They're going to work for my mother, but they're going to turn on me in a way that it's not going to be entirely like if I was around Robert Zarate. It's not. It wouldn't be if I was around Robert Zarate, because many of them were always taking money from me all the time. I was paying for the beers or weed or even drugs, but most of the time it was weed and beer, and then paying for tickets for people to get in. Other than that, I thought that was, I don't rely on that. I still don't rely on it. I don't rely on that at all. Even when I was thinking that was probably going to happen, I knew it was going to be strict conditions and I wanted to do something else. But, because I knew there was going to be bitterness and rivalness between all of us. Even between Eric and Michael is the same thing. Between Bruce and Michael, and Bruce and Eric, and Bruce and me, there was going to be some kind of, but it was more tense with some of them that I had nothing to do with. But I don't know how they were going to deal with it. I thought Chris Jarris or Kevin was going to be a DJ as well and get a DJ contract, but if you look the way that they live their lives, like Chris Jarris plays everywhere. He's an Asian guy they used to play with everywhere. He's a Christian, but he had a fallout with Eric. As I was told, they had real bad conflict, Eric, and I don't know why they had that bad conflict, because we got along really great at his apartment. We used to play at his apartment all the time. When Datron, who moved to the Philippines, or Taiwan, and he lived over there for the last 15 years. But I don't know why Chris Jarris, we got along all great. I don't know what that argument was about between Eric and I had not the slightest idea. Like, we got along, and I think, in my opinion, if I had to make a thought about it, I think it was probably like, oh, you get this gig, and he wanted more money than he was supposed to. But I know I never got paid. I never got paid, not one time. I don't recall ever one time. I think if any, I may have gotten $20, maybe $20 once, but I never got paid from Eric. It was just for fun. It was just for fun, and it was just to have a great time and be part of the crew and experience life together. It was not, to me, I never asked for money. I never even asked for money. That was the crazy thing about it. Every time I was around Eric, and probably why Eric liked me around him at the time playing, is because I never asked him for money, ever. I just like, oh, you want to play? Yeah, you want to come and play? Okay, all right, we'll go play. And we'll go play at Afterlife, or he booked me the numbers of times at Yucatan. I never asked for money, ever. It was just to be able to play a record inside a club, even though there was one person on the fucking dining room area I was playing. I just wanted to play on a loud system at a place, and that was it. But I don't know what that argument, what the conflict was between them two. Chris Jarris's girlfriend or wife, CJ, which I don't know if she's a transgender or not. I said I went to a club like 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. I went to a club. Yeah, I think it was before I got on disability. It was like 35, 34. In between, I was like 30. Was it after? Yeah, I was on disability. Yeah, so I was like 35. It was like 7 years ago, 6 years ago. And I went to a club, and Chris Jarris was there, and I talked to him for a little bit, and I saw his wife, and I talked to her, and she said, CJ, they call her CJ or whatever. It's a white girl. And she said that, yeah, Eric and Chris had a fallout, and they got into some sort of real bad argument. They got into a real bad fight, not like physical fight, but they got into a real bad fight, argument. And I don't know what that was. I know they just shot me in my buttocks. But they got into a real bad argument about who was in control or something, and they don't talk to each other. They don't like each other. But I don't know what that was. Still to this day, I don't even have any idea. I think it was probably something silly and dumb, but that's what my opinion was. But we all got together and DJ, but figured that was going to be a big surprise, but I thought that was going to be the very last thing that was going to happen. But when that last thing, an offer, it was going to be in the worst conditions of strictness, and it wasn't going to be like it's what me and Eric used to think about if it ever happened. I never talked about it really with Michael Rossiter when I DJ'd with him. I did with Eric a number of times because he was more of a dreamy person when it came to actually trying to getting a record deal. He was the only one that ever talked to it because he was more involved in the business side of it than anyone that I knew. He knew a lot about the DJ world. So, I thought Eric. Yeah, I talked to Eric, and we talked about if we ever blow up and became DJs, what our lives would be. And I think his life. I think it would definitely be a dream come true for Eric. definitely, obviously Michael, because he owns all the records, but I think it would be the biggest true dream come true for Eric, in a way that, like, a dreamy person thinks. Michael would be a dream come true, but not the way that I think, similar to what I think Eric would have, and that's because just the different personalities. Michael was a drug addict. Eric was not a drug addict. Eric only did drugs when people would bring that shit to him. He was kind of like me. He would only do drugs when people gave it to him free and sort of just offered it, or they tagged along around to give him drugs. He didn't spend money on dope like that. He didn't. But I think it would bring tears to Eric. Like, I really do. I think it would bring tears to Eric in a way that was probably more powerful than any of us. Probably more than me, even when I was in my 20s. I think it'd bring tears to Eric for a dream like that to come true. I really do. I really do. And I think he deserves it more because he spent connections, time, the business. Like, he was really trying to make it happen. He was really trying. He wasn't just like Michael doing the drugs and partying alone, waiting to die. Not saying that, Michael understood more of the lifestyle of a DJ, I think, better than Eric, but I think that Eric put more work 10 times more work than anyone I ever knew. 10 times more work. He's contacting people on Facebook and, like, people in different cities and states. He was doing that and always trying. He really was. I think for him, it would be like a dream come true that nobody wanted to give him an offer to, and they finally did. But he's really old. He's old like me. He's like 3 years older than me. He's like 2 to 3 years older than me. And I'm 41. His birthday's in March as well. So I think he'll be 44 years old. Yeah, I think he's like 3 years older than me. 2 or 3, yeah. So he would be like 44 years old. Sometimes I think to myself, they already all got DJ contracts, and they're already playing at clubs. I just don't know. And they're traveling all over the place. I just don't know. They won't let me. They're putting fake pictures on Facebook and all this other shit. So that's what I think they're doing. If it's all false, if it is, they're just doing their own life, and I think it would be an absolute dream come true for Eric. Like, he deserved it more than anybody. Do I think you deserve a DJ contract for doing drugs and being a bedroom DJ? No. He put in the work, for the lifestyle more than Eric did, but when I talk about that lifestyle, it was very fantasy-like, crazy, putting drugs, and just a hobby, knowing that it was never going to happen. Eric was trying to make that dream come true. He really was trying to make that dream come true. If this DJ friend went a couple of times and they ditched out on him, then he'd come over to me. If he didn't contact somebody who was just doing drugs all the time and they would want to go DJ, he wouldn't want to bring Michael along. He'd call me. I really do hope the best for him and his dreams come true. He deserves it, but how many DJs are there? How many things? I thought this was all a surprise at some point. And one thing about Eric that I wanted to say, Eric's the only person ever in my life that gave me the credit to say that I was a DJ. That he was the only person. And I still want to say this to him. Every time I was with him and, we'd drink 40s in his room, when I would talk to him, he always gave me respect in a way that he valued me as a DJ. No one else ever did that. No one did. Like, there was no one that did. And that's something that Eric always did for me. And that's something that's very personal and dear to me because, from the very beginning, he was always like, yeah, man, come on, you're part of the crew. Come on, yeah. And he always respected, and he always, when it came to DJing, it was like, you're part of the crew. Like, man, you're a DJ, Hector. Like, you've got talent, Hector. He was the only person that ever said that in my life. No other friend. The bitterness between me, Chris Martinez, or whatever friend showed up, he was the only one that even after I stopped DJing, still to this day, still gave me credit. Like I was a person, and I was a DJ at one time in my life, and I had dreams, the same dreams he had at one point in my life. He was the only person who did that. You know, he told me over the phone the last few times I talked to him, and he said, "You're a turntablist, Hector." He's like, "Man, you got, hell yeah, man. You're like, I've known you for a long time. We're really good friends." And you know, he was giving me this positivity of that I was somebody. He was, and even when I was saying, I don't want to do this anymore, he was like, when I go to his house, even in my early 20s when I did, or when I was 19 years old, he'd always tell me, "Yeah, man, keep doing it, man. Hell yeah, you should keep doing it, man. Heck yeah, man, you should keep DJing. You should keep doing your thing." He was the only person that ever did that and said that. Even whenever I was saying, "Oh, I might go to school," or whatever, he was the only person that ever did that. Ever said that I was a person in a way that no one else did when it came to DJing. So, something that's very unusual when other DJs I was around. Michael wasn't one of them, Chris Martinez, Kevin wasn't, Eric was the only one that would do that. Could have been because I'm Mexican as well, and he's sort of pretty close to the same skin tone as me as well. And he's like half native. He has some Native American Indian in him. But I thought it was important for me to at least talk about that. And he never made anybody. He always made me feel welcome and said that I was a person when it came to that. So, but I thought this whole was a surprise, and they were trying to fix everything because there's just too much conflict between everybody. But time is running out. If they're all DJs, well then, hey, they travel the world and everything's strawberries and apples, right? If not, we're fucking old. Eric is, to do that at such an old age and finally offer that to Eric, I think, or even Michael or whoever else was going to be a DJ. I think it would be such an insult to Eric because he put so much work into it for such a long time, and now he's old, and then somebody wants to offer it. I mean, like, I'm really old, man. Like, I did so many things, and it never happened, when we were young. But, it's always great to have that Mexican support,